It's a great honor to have you with us, Jesse, and welcome to our radio. Welcome to Mongolia and our city.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be invited to play in your city and to be in Mongolia for the first time. I've only seen and heard by word of mouth or television or documentaries, so it's quite interesting to be here and to see everything for myself. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
It's a great honor, and we're really happy to have you here. And now that you're here, tell us about your first impressions of Mongolia.
No, well, I mean, it's definitely different than what I had in my mind. As I was telling some of the students yesterday, I guess like most foreigners, in particular Westerners, in my mind, I saw more of the more traditional, like with nomadic kind of dress and, those things. I thought I'd see like big guys wrestling, and, So for me, this is pretty cool because I'm a city boy.
Oh, that's good.
So it's nice to be able to absorb and see your culture, and at the same time be in a place where I'm comfortable in the city. So it's only the beginning. I'm sure that there are many other things to take in when there's more time.
Yes.
So I can't wait.
For how long will you be staying with us?
I'll be here until Sunday.
Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. So let us talk about more about how the whole idea to come to Mongolia came through.
Well, the idea came from conversations with Martin Zinker, who's the director at GMUB, and he's a great bass player, great musician. And so he had been telling me for a few years now, a couple of years now at least, that, yeah, man, you should come to Mongolia. And I said, what?
Crazy.
Really? I said, well, don't count it. I wouldn't count it out, because I have a very healthy respect for different cultures, and it's always nice in this day and age, this information age, and the world is so small. It's always nice to find something new, So he kept asking. He said, yeah, man, I'm going to hook it up. I'm going to hook it up. I said, And finally, we found a slot, and he said, I'm just going to do it. I said, okay, go ahead. And here I am.
That's amazing. I think that's how most adventurous ideas come through.
Absolutely.
as a really spontaneous, a crazy idea.
Absolutely.
And now it's real, and it's amazing. Tell us about how Martin Zinker described Mongolia to you. What did he talk about the jazz music scene?
Well, he said to me that it was something new, and he explained how hard he had to work to get things started, but once things started to go, he could see the growth and the potential. In the program, and so it started to become a reality. And he also stressed to me the level of passion and love the musicians in the program had and he said that, you know, they had open minds and they were open to different ideas and that they really wanted to play this music. And he said, you know, I want to bring you in to help or maybe inspire and I like that. I like that, you know. So he was pretty positive about the whole idea and really positive about the fact that it's in Mongolia and it's pretty much uncharted territory.
Yes, that's true.
It's hard to find.
I think so.
It's hard to find. So, you know, I can see his fingerprints. I can see his fingerprints, you know.
Have you already met the students?
Yes.
Did you see the spark in their eyes?
Absolutely.
Were they amazed?
Absolutely, for sure. Yesterday we had a nice orientation, I'll say, a nice introduction, and I got to meet, I guess pretty much everybody. And yeah, there was interest. You know, I mean, the way I tried to introduce myself was with a sense of reality. My reality, reality in terms of jazz, of the music, and how that relates to their reality. And everyone, they were really receptive. And so I had a chance to hear them play and to see the big band rehearse. And so, no, I think that he was right. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential there. The only thing I would stress to your listeners and anyone else here is that even if you don't understand or you're not familiar with jazz, these kids, they still need the support because all the love in the world, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. So they still need the support of the community and the folks. So they should really give them a listen whenever they can as well. It helps the program as well. So
that's true because my radio show that I do is called Indie Music. So it's almost underground here, and it's a small music scene, and it's always important to support those independent acts. And even jazz music scene here is almost like underground. There's in the only jazz cafe bar that I know is there's only one right now currently. So it's almost like underground, and it's true that they need support. They need to. Even our listeners, even for me, I do appreciate and listen to jazz music, but there's this hole that needs to be filled right now. Yeah. So, and I think they were really. It seemed. I think it seems surreal because you're from birthplace of jazz, New Orleans, and you've started playing saxophone when you were 11 years old. And at the same time, I know it's real, but it seems surreal to me also. And I would like to share that more with our listeners. And if you could tell us more about yourself and how did everything happen? How did it all start?
Well, I mean, for me, like many young kids in New Orleans, there's no choice. You know, music is an important part of the culture. And the music in New Orleans is very diverse. It's not just jazz, it's all kinds of music. And it's in the atmosphere. it's all around you. And we grow up with it, you know, and it tends to be one of the focal points in terms of like festivities like Mardi Gras, Carnival, and some of the other holidays and celebrations. But even more in New Orleans, it's all New Orleanians, whether they know about jazz or not, they know what to listen for. They understand, like,
they feel it.
Of course. So it's all intertwined in New Orleans. So as kids, well, when I was growing up, it may be a little different now, but when I was growing up, to play an instrument was a sign of respect, you know, and so at some point, we all wanted to try something. For me, as I explained to the students yesterday, I wanted to play football.
Really?
And,
why not?
Oh, of course. And I had an unfortunate little accident when I was 10 years old, playing football. I broke my collarbone, and so for 3 weeks, I was in bed with a body cast, half body cast. And so my brother thought it would cheer me up. He was a musician. He thought it would cheer me up to maybe try to learn how to play the trumpet because I had one hand free. So, and I tried it, and and now I didn't really like it at the time, because in New Orleans culture, the trumpet is the most majestic of instruments. And in every band in New Orleans, the trumpet is always the lead instrument, you know. So I didn't want to play trumpet.
That's why?
No, it's not why. I mean, that's why my brother thought about trumpet first. And said, okay, well, so the cast was taken off and I could move my arm again. So he tried drums.
No, you're not.
And, you know, he wouldn't give up. Because I kept saying, well, yeah, I like this, but I want to play football. And he said, well, I have one more idea. And he came home one day with a saxophone. And I remember the smell of the case. It was an old saxophone.
Wow.
I still remember the smell of the case when I opened it for the first time. And so for me to play was great, you know, and he was actually a great teacher as well. So that's how I came to music. But jazz, not right away, not right away. I wanted to play R&B.
Okay.
It was popular then, you know. I went to play like Grover Washington and some of the more popular saxophone players. And when I was maybe 12 or 13, I had a chance to audition for the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. It's kind of an institution like, if you're familiar with the movie Fame. It's kind of like that. And, you know, where they focus on all of the arts and every type of music, every type of, you know, acting, theater, journalism, ballet, opera, everything. So
all arts.
It was an incredible culture shock for me as a 12-year-old to see all of these kids, you know, ballet dancers twirling around and theater students studying a script, and it was incredible. But it was a bit much for me at 12. You know, I still wanted to hang out with my friends and play football and whatnot. So I chose not to stay in the program. And so it took another well, no, it wasn't until I was 17, in my last year in high school, that my band director said, hey, I have a friend. He's the director of NOCA, that's what New Orleans Center for Creative Arts.
Oh, okay.
Ellis Marcellus. And he said, I think you should audition again. And I said, well, you know, I didn't really like that program. Until they said, well, you would have 3 classes in normal school, and the rest of the day, you have free to go to NOCA. I said, wow, really? Only 3 classes? That's great, you know. So I decided to re-audition. And I auditioned and I made it in, and it changed my entire life. It opened my mind to new thoughts and new dreams. And it, you know, I had never met kids like those kids, because they were all talking about, you know, maybe going to Juilliard, or maybe singing at the Met, or maybe being like a big actress or actors and the theater. And I'm saying, wow, this is incredible, you know. So that's pretty much how the jazz part of it started when I was about 17 years old. And Ellis Marcellus really took me under his wing and tried to give me as much as possible, because, as he said, I wasted
almost 5 years.
Yeah. So, and he did. And from that moment on, that's where the journey started. And so when I graduated, I moved to Chicago, which was a great experience as well, because, you know, Chicago has such a rich history in music.
Yes.
And I spent a couple of years there, and then I decided to move to New York, and here I am.
Here you are. That was like an amazing story. Almost like if they decide to make a movie about you, it's gonna be like a really interesting story.
Well, it's funny that way, because as most creative artists would tell you, you don't ask for things. You know, if you have to ask for things, maybe it's not for you, that life.
Yeah.
Because your whole existence, in particular as a growing, well, really before you even turn professional, your whole existence revolves around an idea. And this idea becomes an obsession. And this obsession becomes passion.
Yes.
And this passion becomes obsession. And it just keeps, because it's more than a dream. It's more than a dream. You practice your craft in hopes, maybe of greatness, or in hopes that you can achieve a certain goal. But as you go along, things happen. Someone hears you, and maybe they say, hey, wow, we love the way you play. Can you come and play with us? Say, okay. And then from that experience, maybe you meet someone else, and from that, and that's how your life is. So for me, being in New York, It was amazing because anything could happen at any moment. And that's pretty much how my life has been since I first moved to New York. I've never truly asked for anything. I roll with the punches. I live my life, and these things, events, and experiences happen. And so here I am in Mongolia. That's going to be a chapter somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even your answers are. I can feel the rich history and rich experience that you had, and that it's not just about music. It's the way of life that you've led, and
it's all relative. It's all relative. And I think more people need to really stop and think about that for a second. You know, we have people every day. They focus on one aspect of life or their existence, and if there are problems with that one aspect, it sort of takes precedent over all of this vastness out here, and you can get caught up in it. But when you start to understand how your existence relates to someone else's existence, it's all related. You know, like we were talking about culture a moment ago. From the moment, you know, the first time I went on a real professional tour was 87, and it was an 8-week tour of Europe. And it was great. But from that first moment, I decided that I really wanted to learn about different cultures, you know, and not just go and play the part and then go home. And that's what I've always done. And I try to tell people that haven't had those experiences, you know, like you'll hear people ask questions about what you like to eat, or what do you like to do with your time, or the same as you. Yeah. Maybe it's prepared differently, but you know, we all eat vegetables, chicken, beef.
Yeah.
I mean, and it sounds trivial when you talk about it, but a lot of people don't think on those lines, and so we have a lot of divisiveness in the world as a result. So I speak on this to say that in terms of people's perception of jazz, or what people's perception here of jazz may be, just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Come, and I'm sure at some point there's going to be something that you can relate to. So it's just a matter of experiencing it.
That's so true. I think having an open mind is something that everyone talks about, but it's such an important aspect of a person to have an open mind. And I think if you never try anything, you won't grow. No. And that's why I think I just want to encourage our listeners to try anything and everything.
Absolutely. I mean, we're not so special alone.
That's true.
Maybe people think they are, but you know, you're not so special without other people or other people's input, or maybe ideas, or you know, that's what growth is about. So I totally agree. I'm here to hopefully entice people to come and listen. Plus, it's at the Opera House. Who wouldn't want to?
Yes.
Experience that. It's a blast.
I'm gonna invite another guest on our show, and she is a young artist, upcoming artist, and a singer. And why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Өнөөдрийн мэндийг хүргэе. Оронгоо миний би хүрэлцэн ирээд байна. Тэгэхээр GMUB гэл төсөл явагдаад байна те, хүмүүс сайн мэдгүй гэж магадгүй л те. Тэр маань юу вэ гэхээр ерөнхийдөө jazz төсөл. Германы Гётегоос одоо Монголд явуулж байгаа одоо jazz хөгжмийг сурталчлах те, залуучуудад ойлгуулах, дээрэс нь Монголд маш олон чадварлаг хөгжимчид бас дуучид байгаа те. Тэр болгондоос jazz гэдэг маань юу вэ гэд үндэс суураас нь ахуулаад бүгдийг зааж байгаа тийм одоо GMUB төсөл гэж нэртэй явагдаж байгаа төсөл байгаа. Тэгээ миний хувьд ч гэсэн jazz одоо хөгжмийг сураад бас тий онлайн сураад бас дуулаад явж байгаа. Маш олон одоо хөгжмийн pop рок бүх одоо дуу хөгжмийн суурин юм уу да тий jazz урсгал маань өөрөө. Тийм тэгэхээр миний хувьд болохоор өнөөдөр мэдээлэл өгөх үүднээс ирсэн. Тэгээд бидний хувьд бол Jessie Davis ирсэн нь бол маш гайхалтай зүйл, дэлхийн алдартай од тий саксофонч. Тэгээд миний хувьд ч гэлтгүй одоо jazz сонирхдаг бүх хүмүүсийн хувьд бол энэ бол маш том нэр хэрэг байгаа. Тэгээд 4 сарын 15-нд 5 дахь өдөр улсын дөөр бүжгийн Эрдмийн театрт 19 цагаас энэхүү тоглолт маань болох байгаа. Тэгэхээр зөвхөн Jessie Davis хөгжимч маань өөрөө биш квартет гэдэг бас шүү 3 алдартай дэлхийн алдартай хөгжимчтэйгээ хамт тоглоно. Тэгээд миний хувьд юу гэж хэлмээр байна вэ гэхээр үнэхээр бас jazz сонирхдаг те өшөө хөгжим тайртай бүх хүмүүс ирж тэнд кафег мэдрээсэ гэж хүсэж байна. Мэдээж дэлхийн стандартыг хангасан энэ хүү гайхалтай хөгжимчид цугласан учраас танд бол гоё мэдрэмжийг төрүүлэх гэдэгт бол итгэлтэй байна. Тийм. Тэгээд хүмүүс бас за үнэхээр энэ тоглолтыг чи үзмээр байна. Хаанаас билетийг авах уу яах вэ гэж бодчихж магадгүй те. Дөр бүжгийн Эрдмийн театрын одоо кассаар зарагдчихж байгаа. Мөн 95 59 75 тэг гэсэн дугаарлуу заалгаад бүх мэдээллийг авч болно. 95 59 75 тэг. Тэгээд бас тикет цэгэм ингээд сайтаас бас онлайн захиалга хийж болох юм билээ.
За тэгээд Indie Music нэвтрүүлгийн сонсогчд маань ч гэсэн заавал яг jazz сонсдог гэдэгтээ биш, яг зүгээр хөгжим тайртай тэрхүү нэг өвөрмөц мэдрэмжийг авахыг хүсэх юм бол та бүхэн Jessie Davis quartet-ийн тоглолтыг заавал үзээрэй гэж хэлмээр байна. За тэгээд I would like to continue about your jazz quartet. We cannot talk about this like a huge part of you, and I'm sure like you would like to introduce more about your quartet.
Yes, it's of course with Martin Zinker on the bass, and if I'm sure by now your listeners may be familiar, but Martin is a great musician. And I think that the people of Ulaanbaatar would be happy to have someone like him here. He's a great musician. So Martin's on the bass, and another great musician, Paul Kirby, pianist. He's from Scotland. And he lives and teaches in Seoul.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He'll be here. And a native of South Korea, from Seoul, great young drummer, Min Chan Kim. I met him last year and we did a tour in Korea. And I was really impressed. Really impressed.
Wow.
And so I invited him to come and play for a week with me in Switzerland as well.
Oh.
So really impressed. So I think that people will see him and listen to him and understand how jazz grows, you know, and the possibilities for people from all over the world to really get it and understand this music. So it's a great band, you know.
And plus to have a legendary musician as you on the same stage with a young growing
legendary, but I've been around.
And to have a young drummer from Korea, to have like those two, like I think it's a huge contrast, and also a great example of the possibility of
course,
the endless possibility of anything.
Well, in the end, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and anyone can understand a lifestyle. You know, so it's accessible to anyone.
Yeah. So it was really great to have you, and I would love to continue this interview for hours and hours, and just explore your world. But sadly, I would have to say that our interview is about to.
Well, hey, next time.
Yeah, maybe. And we have almost 12 minutes left, and I would like to talk about the modern music in your eyes. And I think it's really important for a musician to share your thoughts about modern culture with the young and new generation of music listeners.
Well, music aside, I think it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Technologically speaking. Once again, I grew up with my imagination.
Which is a blessing.
We didn't have, you know, none of the toys had computer chips. So there was a lot left to the imagination. And as I grew, you know, we had telephone booth. So if you were not at home, you know, there were no cell phones, no computers,
Nothing.
And if you wanted to play music, you had to study. You had to learn how to play an instrument. You couldn't press a button and have 1,000 samples.
Sounds at the same time.
So, yeah, it's a different world now. Now, is it better or worse? I won't say, because I think that each generation has its own righteousness. But how it's being used, I kind of have a problem with how it's being used, because kids take for granted that we have a thumb and an index finger that, you know, we're able to do things quite naturally with our hands. And we have this amazing organ called the brain. And, you know, there's so much we can do, you know, and the imagination is endless. And yet, you ask a kid to imagine something, and the first thing they'll do is maybe they'll Google it.
Yeah.
Or maybe, you know, I mean, and like I said, it's great. It's wonderful. My daughter is 11 years old. And she's been on the computer since she was maybe 4. Like, not unusual for anyone. But I try to speak to her, as we've been speaking today, about the value of being within yourself and the value of your imagination, and the value in having a dream or dreams. So that being said, how it relates to the music that's being produced. Number one, what's changed is the industry has changed because of technology as well. But the industry changed, and it's become more or less truly like big corporations. So it's all about how fast can we get it out, how much money can we make quickly, and how fast can we turn it over to find, keep it going, but we have to turn it over. So one group or act comes in and it's a hit, and then tomorrow it's gone, and then something else. So the whole focus on music has diminished. So you don't hear instruments really anymore. And video, of course. So, yeah, it's quite different. I very rarely hear something that's inspirational. To me, doesn't mean that it's not inspirational to younger audiences. But for me, I grew up at a time where it was still about talent. It was still about music, and it was still about expressing stories through your talent and your musicianship. And those things came together. So now we call that brand of music classics. So I have nothing negative to say about the modern music scene. Just comments about how it's produced, why it's produced, and how short-lived it is. There are very few songs, for instance, that one tends to remember. And there are very few songs that changes people's lives. Music used to have that effect on people. So, in short, that's those are my thoughts on the whole thing. I could go on forever, but I won't.
I actually really agree and relate to that, actually. And I think like modern music and like modern way of life is like is more challenging for like young people now.
Absolutely.
And I think it challenges them more to get in touch with them, like true themselves. So maybe it'll be like a filter to all the true, like really true talents. And I think there's like really few of them now. But the good thing about like modern, like the minority of people who actually love music is that they're actually going back and listening to vinyls. And I just like, even last week I saw this like article about that most like albums that are sold are like on vinyl now. And people are more like, even if they're getting into that whole like digging vinyl as like a cool thing to do, even if the first idea is to look cooler, but they will get into like the real stuff, the 60s, the real like vintage like vinyls. And I really hope that that will grow on to people, and things will like everything comes around. So maybe I know a few examples where it was a cool thing to see this big cover and this beautiful picture, and what it did was it sparked their interest to go further and further, and to get into the technology of
the receiver and the turntable and the actual needle.
Yeah.
And the whole thing. And what happens is someone had me over at their house once, and he bought like this incredible system for like $7,000 and the speakers and he did a test. He said, okay, here is the LP. Put on the LP. And of course it was a jazz record. And you could hear the ambiance in the room. And you could hear the breathing of the musicians. Everything was so clear but you felt like you were in the room. Felt natural.
Yeah.
And he put on the CD, and sharp, clear,
very clean,
true sound. So a lot of kids are rediscovering it because of that reason as well, because you actually hear things on LPs that you wouldn't hear otherwise. So there's some good things coming out of it.
So let us finish our interview on a positive note.
Absolutely.
And I really hope our listeners and everyone out there will listen to more vinyls and more real music, and go to shows where real instruments are played, live music. And your first chance is actually this Friday at the Drama Theater. And I think that's it. What would you like to tell our listeners then?
Well, I'm sure that knowing Martin and how he thinks and his work ethic and how he feels about this music and how passionate he is about making the program here one of the best in the world, I'm sure that I won't be the last musician to come from somewhere else in the world to share their thoughts and their music with the Mongolian audience. So that's a totally positive thing because the more guys want to come here, the more it's going to grow as well. But just give it a try. Either you like it or you don't.
Give it a try. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure a lot of people through you will get to know about Mongolia more, and more artists will be interested in coming. And
for sure,
I think it's a great, amazing thing, a historic event.
No, get ready.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you in a few minutes, and thank you for the interview. And урангада бас баярлалаа. Тэгээд энэхүү одоо 5 дахь өдөр болох гэж байгаа тоглолтод нь амжилт хүсмээрэн. Тэгээд үнэхээр бас цаашдаа маш олон уран бүтээлчд GMU OB-гээр дамжуулж те Монголд маань бас ингээд дуу хөгжмийг дэлгэрүүлэх болтугай гэж бас ерөөл тавьмаар байна.
Баярлалаа. Та бүхэн ч гэсэн амжилт хүсье. Тэгээ бас нэмэлтээр хэлэхэд нөгөө 95-50-с 75 тэгтэй гэдэг дугаар маань та бүхэнд үнэгүй бас хүргэж өгөх байгаа. Тийшээ залгаад мэдээлэл аваад бас үнэгүй өргүүлж болох юм.
За тэгээд сая Jesse Davis-ийн одоо энэхүү одоо уран бүтээлчийн зүгээс хэлсэнчлэн та бүхэн just give it a try те зүгээр сонирхоод тэгээд заавал энэхүү тоглолтыг зорж үзээрэй. Энэ бол бас алдаж болохгүй боломж байна гэдгийг бас дахин хэлмээр байна. За ингээд баярлалаа. Яг одоо та бүхэнд инди мьюзик нэвтрүүлгийн ярилцлагын цаг хүрээд өндөрлөж байна. Нэвтрүүлэг бол та бүхэнд 15 цаг хүртэл хүрэх байгаа. Тэгээд хэдийгээр яг инди мьюзик нэвтрүүлгээр jazz дуу хөгжим та бүхэнд хүрдэггүй ч гэсэн ер нь бол бүхэл хөгжимөнд одоо дуртай залуучууд миний нэвтрүүлгийг сонсдог байх гэж бодож байна. За тэгээд яг одоо та бүхэнд миний яг хойно явж ирсэн Fleetwood Mac-ийн Albatross гэдэг дуу хүрч байна. Тэгээд нэвтрүүлэгтээ хамт 15 цаг хүртэл ороо сонсогчдоо